Greetings, welcome back to New York City. I'm very excited to be reviewing this record that I just received 2 days ago. Evenings at the Village Gate from 1961 with John Coltrane, Eric Dolphy, Coy Tyner, Elvin Jones, and two bassists, Art Davis and Reggie Workman, though not on every track. Now it's interesting, where I live, if you go down the block and take a left and go up 2 blocks, that's the home of La Poussin Rouge, which is a club that does all sorts of different music now, a great club, and that's where the Village Gate was. And if you step back across the street and look up on the building, the sign for the Village Gate is still there, which is one of the strangest things in New York City, because in New York, it's constantly changing, constantly switching. Things are constantly being torn down. I can't tell you the number of diners and cool storefronts and neon signs that have been destroyed and displaced and replaced with, commercial crap. The 30 many years I've been here, but that sign is still there. It's a cool sign. Art DeLugoff presents live at the Village Gate, or just the Village Gate, and it has the I forgot who was playing there at the time, but it's always kind of struck me that it's still there. I mean, for years when there was nothing downstairs, La Poussin Rouge has been there a few years, but before that there was nothing there. Oh, let me think. For a while, actually in the 90s I used to go there to see some kind of music. I saw John Scofield there. Anyway, it's neat that they recorded this there, and it's interesting. The recording was done as a test. Rich Alderson, the tech at the Village Gate, wanted to test out his new system, which is pretty interesting. He had an RCA 77. It's one microphone that he had modified to be more point source specific, and he sort of put it in through the ceiling, I believe, but that went to an Altec mixer, which went to a Nagra 3 reel-to-reel tape deck, which went out through 3 KLH speakers. That was the new sound system he had brought in to record this record. It wasn't specifically to record this record, he just wanted to get a sound check. And it's also interesting that he says the club was sort of empty, because on the gig that same night, Horace Silver and the Messengers, Art Blake and the Jazz Messengers, were also playing, or maybe it was that week. Which you wouldn't know that, because if you listen, there's a lot of applause. Hands up, this is a tremendous record. If you care about music, if you care about the evolution of jazz, if you want to get a bird's eye view on what was happening with these two amazing musicians in 1961, right on the heels of John Coltrane's My Favorite Things hit, this'll do it. Now, this recording is much better than the Love Supreme recording that came out last year, but the drums are the loudest thing on here. You can barely hear the bass, you can barely hear the piano except when he takes solos, and the horns are not as loud as the drums, but they're still pretty loud. So when these guys are soloing, it's very, very clear. And this is an amazing record. Just to hear the solos these guys play, it is phenomenal. This is 61, so Coltrane is still totally in. Most of the entire record, Coltrane is playing soprano sax, except on Africa, I believe. And to hear the two of them playing off each other, and they're definitely playing off each other, you can hear how inspired Coltrane is by Eric Dolphy. Eric Dolphy at times is kind of searching. He just sounds like he's searching. Not every solo is great, but when he's totally on, man, he's astounding. He's covering so much ground and going so many places. At times he sounds like Sonny Rollins on 45, or Sonny Rollins put through a computer or something. There's so much going on in his head. He was so incredibly advanced in his soloing. I've never been a big fan of his compositions, even though everyone loves Out to Lunch. And there's a rumor that Blue Note is going to do a deluxe Out to Lunch, even though I haven't heard anything about it, from Jem Crossman at Blue Note, because this is the 50th anniversary of Out to Lunch this year, I believe. But to hear them playing against each other, Dolphy definitely raises Coltrane's game, or just everything is super, super concise. It comes with a really nice booklet, a little thin actually, with liner notes by Ashley Kahn. Very copious liner notes. I've read about half of them. Now the photographs are from that night. There happened to be a journeyman photographer there, taking photos. not very good photos. And that's sort of a cool panorama view of. Now, if you go to the Village Gate, I don't know if that's the original signage, because the sign is there now. It's just one big, neon bulb sign up on the side of the building. It's a big, big sign. You can't miss it. And it also has line notes by Branford Marsalis, Lakeisha Benjamin, an up-and-coming tenor player, Ashley Khan, Rich Alderson, the guy who did the recordings. And it's nicely packaged. Photos from that night. And I'll do a, I've listened to every track and I've made tons of notes to try to give you some idea. Now again, if you want a CD, well, this will come out on CD, but if you want a record that's perfectly balanced and sounds like a modern recording, this is not that. This is an archival recording. And it's funny because Rich Alderson, who went on to do sound for Bob Dylan, opened his own recording studio, gave all these tapes that he made at the Gate. They ended up at the New York Public Library, and apparently a worker found them there with the word Alderson with a question mark on the box. So that's where this recording came from. I think it's fascinating that he was using sort of high-tech gear. Nagra RCA 77, that's a classic mic. KLH speakers. The guy was obviously an audiophile of the day, because back then they were using 61. They're probably using one Altec in a corner. That's what Rudy used. Anyway, it opens up with my favorite things. Tape transfers by Jeff Willens, Media Preservation Labs, New York Public Library. Mastered by Kevin Reeves at East Irish Studios, Nashville, Tennessee. Kevin Reeves does all the stuff on Verve. He does great work. Now, I would assume this is an old tape. It's probably in a hot place. They probably used digital to fix the noise. It was probably hissed to clean it up. We've got this idea now that if it doesn't come exactly from the tape, and the tape is like God or the Ten Commandments, then it's not worth having. So many digital fixes have to be done to get some of these things to sound good. Now, Joe Harley says the Blue Note tapes were in perfect shape, which I can believe. Those are very important things, as I imagine the catalogs primarily of Verve and RCA and Columbia. I imagine all those are in great condition. But a tape like this, it was done kind of in the rough to just test a system. I'm sure there's all kind of work that went on here. Media Preservation Labs, New York Public Library. So it opens up with my favorite things. My favorite things is the entire side. Side A. Side B is When Lights Are Low and Impression. Side C is Green Sleeves. Side D is Africa. This is the only live, non-studio recording of Africa. So that's another great thing about this. And there they are. That's cool. It's a cool photo. Looking happy. They are so simpatico on this. It's really, really exciting. Elvin is full tilt the whole way through. Sounds wonderful. The bass is almost negligible. And it's also interesting to hear McCoy Tyner's playing very stately, charming solos as almost as a counter to they're not sheets of sounds, but Dolphy and Coltrane are playing shit tons of notes. And Dolphy is just like on another planet. The stuff that comes out of his horn is so advanced and hypnotic. And Coltrane's solos are so lyrical and concise. They're really amazing. Several of these tunes open up with Dolphy. He'll do the first solo, then he'll go into the head, then it'll be Coltrane. Dolphy typically on bass clarinet. There is some flute work. My disc 1 is warped. Disc 2 is not. The solos are all very clean and very clear. It's easy to hear. But again, the drums are the loudest thing. And this is a live recording. You have to remember. And Dolphy, he does mewling sounds, gruffing sounds, off-kilter sounds, what sounds like out of tune but they're not. It's also really cool to hear in parts how they're playing harmonies with each other. There might be a tune where one guy's steadying the melody, the other guy's playing harmony behind him. There are a couple of tunes where they kind of twirl together. Those really magical stuff. All the solos are quite long when they're all amazing solos. Impressions has a blazing train on soprano solo. Dolphy sounds like he's sort of finding his way there. Does two green sleeves, train on soprano sax again, and it kind of starts in the intro. You don't hear a beginning. And in this track, Dolphy is doing harmony to Train's melody. It's really fascinating. And after the head of Greensleeves, McCoy Tyner does this long, dreamy, sort of disconnected solo. It's really unusual. And then on Greensleeves, Dolphy comes in and sounds for a minute like Albert Ayler. There's just something very folkish and organic. And I wrote down here kind of mewling, and then he's kind of searching. He's kind of looking. Then Train comes in just raging on soprano. Africa, it clings to the form you hear on the record, which is a big band. Long bass solo, long Elvin Jones solo. Train goes way out, and Dolphy is kind of mewling and doing these sort of animalistic sounds, but it's all very inside. There's nothing that I would call free here. There's no shrieking, there's no honking, which we associate with later period Coltrane. And it's just a remarkable record. And at the end, the announcer, who I think is Rich Alderson, says, "Ladies and gentlemen, the John Coltrane Quintet." And after that, Dolphy heads off to Europe. One of the bassists quits, and Coltrane becomes exceedingly progressive. So this is just a Evenings at the Village Gate. I think this is a great record. To hear the two of them together, I mean, the solos are worth the price of admission. To hear these two masters playing off of each other, it's just astonishing. These are some of the best Coltrane solos I've ever heard, because everything is in. Even though soprano sax, it's not shrieking, it's not 66, it's not 67. Everything's very inside, but it's going there. And man, it's just so propulsive and electric, and they're so connected. I mean, it would have been incredible to see what would have happened if they had worked together. And the liner notes cites a couple downbeat interviews where Coltrane kind of says, "We're going to work together." They even did a downbeat interview together, talking about the new thing and all that, I guess. I don't know what this sells for. They sent it to me so I'd review it, but I think this is a great record. I like this better than the Love Supreme thing. I like this better than the thing that came out a few years ago on Impulse, 2 Down, 2 Up or something. This is an amazing document, and I hope you like it. You can hear one of the tracks, I think When Lights Are Low, is already available online. Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye.